War on Men. Why weak men are easier to control. The world bends around a man who cannot be shaken. Let that sink in for a moment. Take a breath and really let that sink in. Because a man who cannot be manipulated by fear cannot easily be controlled. A man who can sit with discomfort, think clearly, control his impulses, and stand firm under pressure becomes difficult to influence, and that kind of man is becoming rare. Today, many men feel lost, disconnected from purpose, disconnected from discipline, disconnected from themselves, weak mentally, weak emotionally, constantly distracted, constantly overstimulated. And whether intentional or not, the systems around us often reward distraction over awareness, because distracted people are easier to influence. Reactive people are easier to predict. Emotionally unstable people are easier to control. Welcome back to the I Am experience, where awakening becomes real. Today we're beginning a new direction. We're talking about modern masculinity, control, distraction, and the psychological systems shaping men today. Not from politics, from awareness. Think about the world we live in. Constant stimulation, constant comparison, constant dopamine, short-form content, validation loops, outrage cycles, escapism. Most men never sit still long enough to hear themselves think. And that matters, because a man who never sits in silence never questions the system he's living inside. In many ways, the Matrix analogy fits perfectly, not as a literal conspiracy, but as a system of conditioning, a world built on psychological loops. Fear, ego, lust, greed, validation, comparison. The exact loops we discussed earlier in this journey. And when a man stays trapped in those loops, his attention is owned. His emotions are controlled externally. His mind never becomes fully his own. But here's something important to understand. The Matrix is not evil, and the people benefiting from these systems are not sitting in dark rooms plotting against you. They are simply operating within the rules of the system. And the truth is, they can only influence what you allow them to influence. That's the hard part people don't want to hear. Because once you realize that, responsibility comes back to you. If you are impulsive, the system can manipulate your impulses. If you need validation, the system can control your behavior through approval. If you are addicted to stimulation, the system can own your attention. If you cannot sit with discomfort, the system can keep you distracted forever. But a grounded man, a disciplined man, a man who controls himself internally, the loops stop working on him. Not because he escaped the Matrix, but because he stopped feeding it unconsciously. That's real freedom. Not fighting the system emotionally, not obsessing over who controls what, not living in paranoia, just seeing clearly, observing the loops from the outside, instead of living unconsciously inside them. Because once you understand the game, you stop reacting to it automatically. You see the outrage cycles. You see the fear manipulation. You see the dopamine traps. And instead of being emotionally pulled into them, you simply observe, calmly, clearly, without attachment. One of the biggest things I noticed after awakening was how difficult it is for most people to simply sit still, especially men. There's always distraction, always movement, always noise, always stimulation, scrolling, escaping, consuming. It's like silence itself became uncomfortable. And I realized something important. A man who cannot sit alone with himself will always look outside himself for direction. The strongest men I've encountered are not the loudest men. They are the most grounded, the men who can stay calm under pressure, think independently, tolerate discomfort, delay gratification, stand alone if necessary, because the world bends around a man who cannot be internally controlled, and that begins with awareness. Awareness of your impulses, awareness of your distractions, awareness of what owns your attention, because once you can see the loop, you stop automatically feeding it. This isn't about becoming emotionless. It's not about dominance. It's not about ego. It's about sovereignty, mental sovereignty, emotional sovereignty, the ability to remain centered. In a world designed to pull you outward constantly, the modern world profits from reaction, but powerful men respond. The modern world profits from distraction, but grounded men focus. The modern world profits from weakness, but disciplined men become difficult to manipulate. So the real question is not who controls the matrix. The real question is what still controls you. Your impulses, your fear, your need for approval, your inability to sit still, your addictions to your distractions. That's where the real battle is. Not outside you, inside you. Because once a man frees his mind from compulsive distraction, from fear, from emotional dependency, he stops becoming easy to influence. And when that happens, the matrix loses its power over him. Not because the world changed, but because he did. If this resonated, comment. I reclaim my attention. Next episode: dopamine, distraction, and the death of discipline. Stay grounded, stay disciplined, stay aware. You are the I Am.